Welcome to Baddie, a monthly podcast by For the Breast of Us, the first breast cancer community for all women of color, where we share real-life experiences, information, and education to help you live your best life after a breast cancer diagnosis. Welcome to Baddie. Welcome to Baddie.
Hey baddies, this is Baddie Ambassador Shangrong Lee from the DMV area. I'm a wife, mother of 2 boys, and I was diagnosed with breast cancer back in 2017 with stage 2B invasive ductal carcinoma at the age of 43. Are you guys ready? Let's get started.
Hey baddies, I'm Ginny, the OG Baddie Ambassador, Asian baddie, and resident funny lady over here For the Breast of Us. I was diagnosed in 2019 at the age of 41 with stage 1 invasive ductal carcinoma and underwent a bilateral mastectomy without breast mound reconstruction and some chemo and radiation. I'm coming to you from colorful Colorado, ready to chat with some baddies.
Hey everybody! My name is Ginny and I am a breast cancer thriver survivor and a Baddie, Asian baddie ambassador with For the Breast of Us. I'm here with fellow baddie ambassador Shangrong along with a huge group of other survivors and thrivers, and since it's AAPI Heritage Month, we are highlighting AAPI survivors and thrivers. For those that don't know, AAPI is Asian American and Pacific Islander. Since this is a large group, we do want to get through some introductions, but let's go ahead and start with myself and my own ethnic background. I am actually half and half, like I like to say. My father is European white and my mother is Korean. I identify as Korean because that's what I look like. I was diagnosed in 2019 with stage 1 breast cancer, and I have been cancer-free and out of treatment for a couple of years now. Shangrong, why don't we start with you?
Sure. So both of my parents are Taiwanese, which is a small island off of China. Not many people know that. And I'm also a breast cancer ambassador, and I was diagnosed with breast cancer back in 2017 with invasive ductal carcinoma, and been in remission for September coming up will be 5 years. All right, so I'll move it on to, I'm going to see who's on my screen here. So I'm going to start with Layla because she's at the top of my screen.
Hi, it's actually Laya.
Oh, I'm sorry, Laya.
That's okay. We my family is from the Philippines. That's my ethnic background. Laya means freedom in Tagalog.
Oh.
My parents immigrated to America. So I'm first generation. I was diagnosed with breast cancer, stage 2 breast cancer at the age of 40. And I also have my 5-year anniversary coming up in September.
Yay!
It's good.
Thanks, Laya.
Thank you.
Let's move it along. Jess, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, my name is Jess. I was diagnosed in 2020, right at the start of the pandemic. Best timing ever. With stage 3 breast cancer. My background is Japanese American. I'm 4th generation, if that means anything to our listeners and to you guys. What it really means is my grandparents, all 4 of them were born in America, and none of my parents speak our original language anymore. So I'm super American. But honestly, we all are, whether you're new or not. So I just wanted to add that little bit. Oh, also, I'm from Hawaii, so I'm not a Pacific Islander, but I am a Hawaii local.
Oh.
Thanks, Jess. How about let's go with Chandra? And I think she's our only Canadian today. Oh, no, never mind. We have two Canadians. I apologize. All right, go ahead.
Hi, so my name is Chandra, and I actually am American. I live in Texas.
What do I know?
So my ethnic background is Hmong, which is a very small Asian ethnic minority. So my parents are from the mountains of Laos in Southeast Asia. I'm technically a refugee. I was born in a refugee camp and came over to America when I was less than a year old. I was diagnosed with DCIS in my left breast in May of 2018. So this is my 4-year diagnosis anniversary month. And I'm very happy to be
here. That's awesome, Chandra. How about we go to Roshni?
Hi, my name is Roshni. That's the Americanized version. The actual pronunciation is Roshni. And I am first generation American. My parents are from Suriname. Suriname is a country in South America. My ancestors were taken from India as indentured servants to Suriname by the Dutch. And so my parents speak Hindi and also Dutch. In 2019, I was diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer at the age of 22. And I really love to speak about being Asian American because we're often left out of the breast cancer conversation. So I'm happy to be here.
And we're happy to have you. Thank you, Roshni. And then finally, we've got Dr. Simran. And hopefully I'm saying it correctly. It's funny because I'm Instagram friends with her. I see her. I talk about her all the time, but I don't know if I'm ever
nailed it
right.
You nailed it. Oh. Simran. And my name means to meditate. So I am 34. I am a first generation Canadian born South Asian. My mom was born in New Delhi, India. We are Punjabi. And my dad was actually born in Trinidad, but he's also Punjabi. My grandfather was in the Indian diplomat, so he traveled a lot. So I have a very strong family history of breast cancer. My mom's a 2-time breast cancer survivor. I actually have not had cancer, but I have the BRCA1 genetic mutation. I found out about 8 years ago when I was 26. And after about several years of screening, I, in 2020, ended up having a bilateral mastectomy with aesthetic flat closure, so no reconstruction for me, and a total hysterectomy at the same time, putting me into surgical menopause. So I am super excited to be here because, like Rush said, I think we just don't talk about it enough in the South Asian community, and any chance I get to speak about it, I'm happy to.
Awesome. And that rounds out our panel today. Thank you, everyone, for introducing yourself. Shengrong, you want to kick us off with the first round of discussion?
Well, I would like to start with Dr. Simran. When you discovered that you had the BRCA gene mutation, how did that happen? If you can go into more detail about it.
Yeah, so my mom was first diagnosed at the age of 33. I was 13. And at that time, she had genetic testing and it was negative. Several years later, in 2014, her older sister was diagnosed with a form of ovarian cancer. And by that time, I was a second-year medical resident and just kind of knew a lot more than I did at 13. And so encouraged her to get genetic testing again. And just a side note, there's advances in genetic testing all the time. So if you have a very strong family history and, you know, the genetic testing was negative in your family, I would encourage you to think about it if it's been more than 5 years to consider getting tested again, because they're discovering new genes all the time. So that's basically what happened in my mom's case. And so she ended up finding out she was a BRCA1 genetic mutation carrier. Shortly after that, she ended up getting a total hysterectomy. And then about a year later, I was 26, and I decided to get tested, actually just before I was about to get married, because I thought it would only be fair to make sure my future husband kind of knew what he was getting into.
Did you find that when you made the decision to have the prophylactic mastectomy and the hysterectomy, did you have any family pressure pushing you back from making that decision?
Oh man, this is like such a loaded question. The short answer is yes, but the other thing is that I didn't really seek any opinions from my extended family because I knew what I was going to receive, and I wasn't ready for that, knowing that I was going to get surgery. Like I already knew as soon as I found out about my mutation. And a little bit of backstory for me, the reason for me, it was always like when I'm going to get the surgeries and not if. It's because I'm a palliative care physician. So what I do for a living is I care for people with serious illness, mostly cancer, at the end of life. And so I've seen a lot of young women pass away from cancer. And then with my mom's history, it was a no-brainer for me, given this blessing, really is what I call it. And so for me, it was mostly like a lot of intimate conversations with my husband, especially the fact that I was choosing not to have reconstruction, and then also deciding to put myself into menopause at 33. And then my parents did say, like, are you sure you don't want to get reconstruction? Like, they were worried about that. My parents ended up getting divorced a few years after my mom's cancer. And now looking back, I can see that there was probably a lot of reasons that were related to like kind of just post chemo complications and things that, again, were just not talked about. And my mom didn't know what it meant to be in menopause and what that would do to her sex life. And, you know, all the things that we just don't talk about. And so for me, I was extremely vocal with my husband about what the best case and worst case scenarios would be. And then same with my parents. I just told them, like, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And in the end, they supported me. Again, I didn't ask them permission, but they supported me. And then everyone else, I left them out of my decision making.
Yeah, that's smart. That helps with the mental health for sure. And being vocal with your husband, and he still married you. That's amazing.
Well, again,
he's a good one.
So
then
he's an ICU doctor. So we both deal with a lot of end of life. And so for us, what's most important in life is very clear. And that was for our children to have a mother. He loves me just as much without boobs and without ovaries as he did before. And actually, sex is better than it was before. So I don't think he has anything to complain about.
We're going to circle back. We're going to circle around.
I'm just like going right in.
We'll do that.
Yes, we'll need some tips. Maybe we'll do that towards the end of the discussion.
I did see a lot of heads nodding when you were talking about how you knew what you were going to hear from your family as soon as you made your decision. Is there anyone else that kind of wants to share? Maybe you have a similar experience or different. Roshni, I see you pretty enthusiastically nodding there.
Yeah. I mean, as I'm an only child, and I'm Indian, and so a lot of people had comments and, you know, what I should do and what I shouldn't do and who I should be listening to, and wanting to get me at their doctors versus my already established medical team. Were asking me for my, samples, my diagnosis papers, my results and stuff like that, just so they can, like, I know that it was coming from a good place, but it was very invasive, and I also was very lost on, I was 22. I didn't know what I was doing. And to hear all these people have their voice and their opinions was kind of messing with what my gut told me. My gut told me, okay, I have my medical team. I like my oncologist. She specializes in triple negative. I love my surgeon. And I want to get treated in New York. That was where I wanted to be and where I felt comfortable being. But then, you know, you have distant family members saying, you know, questioning chemo or questioning the fact that you're eating a birthday cake because they have the false notion that sugar feeds cancer. Yeah. And so, yeah, I wish I took the same approach as Simran. I did not. I just decided to be vocal. I just posted on Instagram that I got diagnosed with cancer because I felt very alone being young and also Asian. So I just posted, and everyone was calling my parents, and I only regret doing it because I didn't want them to have to also answer to people because they're my parents. So I'm trying to protect them, but I needed to be vocal about it because I couldn't just sit here with my thoughts about being diagnosed and not say something to someone. But yeah, people don't really hold back when you're diagnosed with cancer, and I feel like people just need to understand that they're not going through it. The person who just got diagnosed is, and they need more support versus just talking behind our backs.
Yeah. I find that with a lot of Asian families, first generation and immigrant families, there's a lot of collective decision making. Like the family is going to make this decision. Whereas when you're going through cancer or any kind of medical crisis, like this is your decision, and you don't necessarily want all that noise. Is what I would say in the back. That was what I thought anyway. Laya, you had something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I wanted to say I actually had the opposite happen to me. I think one of the things, the silver lining of cancer, of going through this, it gave me my voice and helped me to find who I truly am. For my diagnosis, when I say the opposite, is my parents were not there for me because my grandmother, my mother's mother, was a child when the Philippines was occupied by the Japanese. And the trauma that my family has seen has passed down to my mother, and my mother has passed it down to me. So that abandonment and that inability the skills to not talk about what happened and how to be there for your loved ones, I didn't have that. I had to be the parent. And so I kind of really took control of it. My parents are there. Don't get me wrong. I love my parents to death. They are there for me through the process afterwards. But I think it was the initial diagnosis. Oh, you have cancer? Oh, well, I learned a lot about how other people deal with trauma. When you are diagnosed, like, they didn't know how to be there for me, so then they were not there for me. So I had to take control of the situation. Thank God I had an amazing therapist at the time who told me that this was my moment to take control. And, when you're diagnosed with cancer, you feel a loss of control because you can't control your health. And so selecting my team, selecting what I call the unicorn tribe, who was there for me the entire process. I think if I didn't have that wisdom that my therapist gave me, I don't know how I would fare mentally afterwards. But I think everything just kind of happened and cracked open the way it was supposed to. So it's kind of led me back to why I'm here in Vietnam, bringing me closer to my motherland. I'm just really exploring myself and my family history and the history of the Philippines and the colonization, destruction of colonization.
I have the similar experience as well. With my parents being Taiwanese, I don't have a close relationship with them, and the trauma they had experienced growing up, they did not talk with me. So my parents immigrated to the U.S., so I'm first generation, my sister and I. And they don't show emotions. They don't say, I love you. They just express their love in different ways. So when I told my mom that I was diagnosed with breast cancer, she didn't really say much. I talked to her over the phone, and she said that I'm really busy and I have a lot of work to do. And and that was it. And, I wasn't surprised. I was upset, but I wasn't surprised. I was, when I was diagnosed, I was 43. I'm married. I have 2 children, and my husband is a physician. So he was my backbone throughout the journey. And then my sister, she's 5 years younger than me. She didn't really respond either. So, for her, she was just quiet. She didn't really say much. And, first I got really mad because I'm like, this is my sister, but then, I thought about it. I said, okay, this is how we were raised. We didn't really connect well as we were growing up either. So, for me, finding that support system, I had that with my husband and my 2 boys who were 10 and 5 years old at the time. My 10-year-old even had to help me with, right after my mastectomy, when you have the wrap around, he had to help me put it back on after I took my shower and help me start to take it off. So I don't know how he'll be as an adult, but he seems to be okay so far. It's been 5 years.
Speaking of generational trauma.
Yeah. And then my younger one was 5 at the time. And so when he saw my drains in the bathroom, he just looked at me and ran out. So, but my husband was working. And he was the one with the income, and being a physician at that time, he was an ER doctor. So his job was demanding. And so he was split in half, literally split in half. So I still owe him, I don't know, a retreat somewhere where he can be gone and not be seen for days or months. I don't know, where he can just somehow, recuperate from this. So, having that lack of family support does, I guess it does reinforce that. But then again, like Layla, what you're saying about leaning into yourself and your identity. I've been doing that as well. I've been more conscious about being Taiwanese and what does that mean. And that being, bananas, being a banana, yellow on the outside, white on the inside, growing up. So,
can I add to that, Shangrong?
Sure.
What you were saying about our stories, I think that's what you said. I'd heard something like 2 years ago or something like that, listening to a Filipino American podcast, and they talked a lot about what is a Filipino American and what does that look like, right? Because there is no quote unquote definition, and that we are the definition, we are the history of it, and if we don't write it down, we will forever be erased. Mm-hmm. And so that's what really struck me and has never left me, to know that we've already been tried to be erased, right? And then if we don't write these stories down, the stories that we're all telling right now, who is going to know about it?
Mm-hmm.
That's so true. That's so true. I would like to kind of circle back around when we were talking about the generational trauma. Chandra, your story is interesting because you were a refugee. Do you think that had an impact on how your family reacted when you told them they had cancer, or how you chose to share the story?
Yeah. So I want to touch on that, when I think one of our themes is, Jenny, what you said about Asians don't get breast cancer. Mm-hmm. So when I was diagnosed 4 years ago this month at age of 38, because my diagnosis was DCIS, I think like every provider that I talked with said that was the best kind of breast cancer to get. Which,
I hate that.
Yes,
cancer is bad.
Yeah.
My breast surgeon said the same thing.
Yeah. Well, then they should get it then if they really think that's
right. Yeah. You can have it.
Yeah. So when I was diagnosed, and I do have a good close relationship with my mom. So I grew up in a single parent household. And so when I decided to share with her, the very first thing that she told me was, "What? Hmong people don't get cancer." And so I was like, okay. But thankfully, she was very supportive. I was fortunate to have a supportive family. And my genetics testing, so Dr. Simran, you mentioned genetics testing. Mine didn't go so well in terms of the family background and, family history. Because as Hmong people, growing up, in the mountains of Laos, you didn't have running water. So, of course, you're not going to have documented medical records of every family member. You're not going to have that history. That is just the harsh reality. And so for my genetics testing, all of the family history, and family background to me was invalid because I didn't know at what age my, uncle passed away and from what. We just didn't have that. And so that was, I think, the most frustrating part of my whole cancer journey is the genetics testing. And then in terms of, just talking with family, I'm fortunate. I have a large loving family. And so I told everybody, and I don't think I allowed anybody to dictate decisions for me. I'm also sort of the black sheep of the family where I'm very independent. Hmong culture is very family oriented. You've got large clans, and it's also very patriarchal. And I already knew that. Yeah, I already knew I was going to make the best decisions for myself and for my body. And so again, with DCIS and all the providers are like, oh, that's the best kind of breast cancer to have. I went with a conservative route of lumpectomy, anticipated radiation, and tamoxifen for the hormone therapy. But I had multiple spots of DCIS. And so when my breast surgeon recommended to get a mastectomy, I had already made the decision. Worst case scenario, I lose both my breasts. Just take them both. And some people were surprised by my decision, especially with the stage 0. But I'm really thankful I made that decision to have a bilateral mastectomy. And I'm a very proud flatty. I'm a short, chunky flatty. So I always try to advocate for, hey, bigger BMI girls, we deserve a good flat closure. We deserve a good aesthetic flat closure. Don't leave us with extra skin.
Yes.
So I'm a very...
Uh-oh.
She
froze.
I think we lost her.
She did.
Oh, no. Maybe she'll come back in. We have quite a few flatties here.
I'll add on to what Chandra was saying, though. Like, it's kind of funny because she's like, in the mountains of Laos, they don't have medical records. But even in India, where, they have pretty good medical care, cancer dates back to my great-grandmother. So just on my mom's side of the family, there's at least 8 or 9 women. And like throughout the years, either breast or ovarian cancer. And throughout the years, you just kind of heard like, my mom's this cousin got diagnosed with something, and this aunt died of something in her stomach. And like, again, I was young, so I never really put the pieces together. And then I started piecemealing it together after I got my genetics diagnosis. And it was always kind of, again, I saw it with my mom. Like, she dealt with cancer behind closed doors, right? Like, she was diagnosed at 33, but she moved to Canada when she was 18. And she basically lived with my dad and his family longer than she lived with her own family. So her whole family was in India when she was diagnosed. So my dad was there as much as I think he knew how to be, but he didn't really know how. And then her in-laws were in-laws. Like, they didn't give her the love and support that she would have gotten, I think, from her family. But then again, like, I don't remember her family really being there for her either. So when you talk about generational trauma, like, she broke that for me. Like, when I found out about my mutation and when I told her I was going to get, these surgeries and everything, like, I think she gave me everything she wished she had. right?
Yeah.
And I, like, to Roche's point, like, I was pretty quiet. I didn't share my diagnosis when I found out about it, but I was also in the middle of residency. So I didn't get onto social media until the pandemic in 2020, and then I started looking for community, and that's how I found all of you beautiful people. But I was so vocal, and she was nothing but supportive there. But I think the family history piece, like, for most of us, like, if you're a first generation or more, like, we just don't have them, because the people that are in our home countries don't even tell anyone that they have cancer, because we don't use the C word. And that's where all the cultural taboos and, like, there's something wrong with you if you have cancer,
Well, and
all of that.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a woman's issue, right? So a lot of us come from patriarchal culture. So it's just they died from a woman's issue. And breasts equals sex. And we talk about sex. So we can't talk about any of this. It's very taboo. And obviously that's not exclusive to Asian culture and families, but I feel like it's pretty prevalent.
I honestly don't even know how anyone outside of my husband and my parents feel about me being flat chested. Like, I don't know. No one's, and again, I'm pretty vocal, so no one's, I guess, had the guts to say anything to me.
Yeah.
And I'm a doctor, so that helps, right? Like, I can quote them the science, and that's just the way it is. So
probably why they don't say anything.
Because
my mother said one thing to me, asking if I wanted reconstruction, and I explained to her, for me, I just don't want to have the additional surgeries. I'm happy with how I am. You know, it doesn't work for everybody, but it works for me. But within Korean culture, it's very, like, there's a lot of superficiality. It's very appearance driven. So there is kind of that, like, if we're going out to the Korean church, for example, it's like, why don't you put a little, put your boobs in, or something. She is pretty image conscious. Like, she supports me in my decisions, but you can tell she's not as comfortable when she's with her people, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. If I could add to what you said and what Simran said, when I was getting genetic testing after I was diagnosed, my parents were both, like, just very, like, tense and anxious, and I ended up being negative for BRCA, but they took it to heart that if I had a genetic defect, like a genetic composition to cancer, that there was, like, they did something wrong. They were both, like, because there is some breast cancer on my dad's side, but they didn't find any link. But still, they had that anxiety. They felt, like, awful that their genetics could cause me to get cancer when, that's not their fault. Genetics are science and its own thing. It's not like something you conjure up and you get. So when I was doing genetic testing, sorry, you go, Jenny.
Okay, I was going to say, it is interesting because I've read some recent statistics about, Asians don't get cancer. Well, we do. We have relatively low breast cancer rates, but then you look at first generation Asian women and recent immigrants, and the cancer numbers are higher. Which, it raises questions. There's something about living in this country that gives us higher breast cancer rates than our counterparts in our, native countries as well. So obviously there's more than a genetic component, but
yeah, but it's like you with the genetic testing, it's like an answer for you, or like you can piece the things together, but you need your family and the history to help you do that. And when you don't have that support, and you go to the doctor and they're like, oh, what about your uncle? What about this? And you're like, I don't know how to answer your question.
Yeah, I had that issue, but so I'm vocal with my diagnosis, and I tell my cousins and my aunts and uncles what's been going on with me, and they just look at me with a blank face. So I feel like a black sheep, but I know that from this experience how important it is to know, within your immediate family and your extended family, what that looks like. So, as far as I know, there is no family history of breast cancer, but that doesn't matter. 70% of women who are diagnosed, it's not family history anyways. So,
Yeah, and now
Higher than
I'm the
that.
history.
you're the history.
That's true.
And
Now
that-
we're the
you're-
history.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Rushni, right? Is that the correct way to pronounce it?
Roshni, yeah.
Yeah, Rushni. So for you being young at 22, how was that for you as an Indian woman at 22 with your peers talking about it?
With my peers, it was very difficult because it was a year after graduating college. We were in our first jobs. Everyone is going out to bars and, having the time of their life in New York. And I was doing the same thing up until I got diagnosed, and that all had to be pulled back. And I had to figure out how to navigate our wonderful healthcare system and talk to insurance companies. And my friends didn't have to do that. And I felt alone in it because I was 22.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else there? Like, what? I had to figure out my taxes too. I was like, okay, what am I going to do wrong? The taxes or my cancer stuff? Like, which one is I'm going to mess up first?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's hard. They would ask me to go out with them, and I would sometimes say no because if my white blood count was low, or I was bald too. I wasn't used to being bald. I had hair all my life. And so being bald for me was a very conflicting thing because as an Indian woman, you're known for your hair. You're known for your long hair. And when I lost my hair, I felt like I lost a piece of me. I felt like I lost my identity. I was then, trying to figure out who I am as on my own, separate from my parents, because as a first generation, you're figuring things out on your own, but then you also have to help your parents, and they sometimes tag along in things that you try to do. But I wanted to try to figure out who I was without my hair. I wanted to authentically be Roshni and, spread, my name means light, so spread light about my diagnosis, about what has happened to me, and empower other young women of color, especially Asian women, to find their voice and speak up for yourself. And yeah, that's something that I'm very passionate about because people think that we're quiet, but I'm like, I'm not quiet. No! I will tell you how it is. And
I am so not quiet.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like
not
that's
a
one of the
model
greatest
minority, damn it.
Yes. Yes.
Isn't that one of the greatest blessings of being born in this country, though, or America or Canada? We are able to use our voice. I feel like back home in India, when my cousins still try to speak, they're told very clearly what not or to do. So I think that's a beautiful blessing that we all have.
Yeah,
that's true.
Agree.
So we haven't heard from Jess yet in this conversation, and she's our super American Asian girl. How was it when you spoke to your parents or shared with your family? How did you do it, and how did they react?
Well, I have two families. I grew up in Hawaii with my single parent mom, just the two of us. We're very close. And she was devastated, and we have a wonderful relationship. And she wanted to be here for me, but it was February 2020, and it was the beginning of the pandemic. So, and she's older, so she could not travel to see me. So I had to go through all my treatment without her and not see her for 2 years, and that was really hard.
Wow, that is hard.
However, I'm living in California with the other half of my family. My parents were divorced when I was born, so I have this wonderful other family that's a mix of Japanese, Mexican, and Filipino, and they're all here. I have two sisters with my dad.
Oh my God, you guys have the best food at the cookouts.
There's great food, yes. Yes, no, really, yeah. We have all the food is what we're saying.
Yeah.
And this family is very big. Again, I have two sisters on this side, and we're all very close as well, so I had tons of support. That was great. But, I was diagnosed at 43. I'm 45 now, and I don't have kids, and I'm not married, though I do have a partner. And one of the choices I had to make quickly was, besides all the treatment options, of course, it was extra things I could do. And my cancer was 100% hormone positive. So I decided to remove my ovaries and fallopian tubes. So I had a bilateral salpingo oophorectomy. And that was elective, right? Like I chose to do it to really reduce my chances of more cancer and cancer spreading. But it was still a shock to a lot of people, I think, in my family, because it's like something extra you're doing when you already are doing surgeries and chemo and radiation, and you're choosing to do more. Like, are you crazy? And you can't have kids. But I was already 43 and had already established that kids were not for me. And yet there was still that, are you sure? Because you can't change it. So I think a lot of people will deal with that at any age. I think I got off lucky because I was older. So it kind of became a little bit of easier convincing other people, which is annoying that you have to convince other people. Yeah. But that's something that I think we all have already just talked about, that the moment you start sharing your decisions, you either have to convince them along with you or hear their opinions nonstop. Because sometimes even just walking away doesn't work, right? Yeah. So there was some of that. But I'm doing good now. I'm NED. I'm happy where I am. I'm still technically in active treatment, though I'm done with the big major stuff, but I'm on a specific drug that's very strong. So I'm considered active treatment for 1 more year. It's called Verzenio. But after that, then I'll be kind of like everyone else. I'm really happy about that. I feel lucky that I've had such good support. Again, living with family on this side, a big extended family that wanted to support me was great. It was just the pandemic. So I couldn't see half of them. No one could go with you to the hospital. When it was time for surgery, someone had to drop you off at the curb and you just walked yourself in, that kind of stuff, right? No sitting, nobody hanging out with your chemo, no meal train because nobody could find groceries to cook for their own families, much less cook for you, that kind of stuff. So I think that was a little hard, but that was also not the time to complain because cancer may not have been the worst thing that other people were going through at the time. So it was just a weird time, but yeah. See a lot of faces shaking their head. I think you guys all know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yes. That sort of transitions us into mental health, which I'd like to talk about a little bit. I'm curious if you were offered mental health at all through your cancer journey, or I like to say cancer situation. I don't like the word journey.
I don't like the word journey either.
Yeah. So during your active cancer situation, were you offered mental health services? Myself, I was not. I had to reach out for it. And I feel like it's been that way my whole life, because the person next to me, the white lady next to me, has the social worker that comes and talks to her. The other white lady next to me has the nutritionist that comes and talks to her. Me being the young-looking Asian person, I don't look like I'm traumatized. That doesn't look like on my face, even though, like, mentally, I'm losing my damn mind. Can anyone else relate? Yes?
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember the day I booked my mastectomy. It's like a vivid memory. I was sitting in my car and my hands were all sweaty and I was like, holy shit, I'm actually doing this. And it was just the beginning of the pandemic. So I had no idea what I was about to see over the next several months, which, like Jess said, was probably the most traumatic situations I've ever seen in my career as a physician. And I remember calling my breast surgeon's office asking for the social worker. And this, I had just come from an appointment to see the plastic surgeon. I had already decided I didn't want mastectomy, but like both breast surgeons I saw insisted I see 2 different plastic surgeons just to be sure, which makes sense. But the first one was a total, I don't think I'm allowed to swear, but
go ahead.
Total D-bag. I mean, I walked in, he was like, you're young, you're 30, you're beautiful, like, yeah, direct to implant, that's what we're doing. And that's like all he said. I was like, hey, I'm not even dealing with this. So I went to another whole team. I loved the breast surgeon. He was awesome. He asked me to see another plastic surgeon. I saw her, thought she was female, thought she would be more accepting of my decision. Ended up telling me I was going to be psychologically scarred if I went flat. Legit, those are the words she told me, knowing I'm a doctor.
Wow. What?
Knowing I'm a doctor. And I remember walking out of there with my husband in tears, right? And I'm sitting in my car and I'm calling my breast surgeon's office. I get a hold of the social worker and I'm like, hey, I just like scheduled all this and this is what just happened. I told her, and she was so cold. And just so you guys get a point of reference, like I'm a palliative care doctor. Like I sit with people in like the toughest emotions and feelings and, you know, like just with so much authenticity and empathy. I like listen, and I've been doing this for like 7 years. And I thought, for once, I was going to get that back. And like the medical system slapped me in the face. Like I can't even imagine what it's like to be a non-physician in this place, which is why I love these communities. And I love to hear your voices so that I can advocate more to teach my people how to talk to people, you know? But I called the social worker and I was like, hey, do you have a counselor or someone I can talk to? And she was like, what do you mean? I was like, I'm 32. I just scheduled my mastectomy. Like it's preventative and I'm getting a hysterectomy. Like, is there someone I can talk to about what I'm about to go through? And she's like, I'm not sure what you want to talk about. And I was just like floored.
Like,
I was floored.
Wow.
Oh,
wow.
So it ended up working out because our hospital made us all see psychologists because of the pandemic, because of what we were seeing. So I ended up talking to her about because I had my mastectomy and hysterectomy in the middle of the pandemic. So I ended up talking to her about both things that I was going through. So it worked out, but
double duty works.
Yeah.
It was crazy, man.
Wow. So I'm in healthcare too, and I just wanted to chime in that, you know, I think for being in that setting, we're really good at advocating for others. And then when we get hit with something medical, I always feel like I forget everything that I advocate for others, that I help for others. And so until I am done with that visit, or until I'm, you know, finished and I'm removed, you know, from that particular scenario, then I can process and say, oh shit, I need to follow up on this. I need to ask about that. So I'm a firm believer in being a fellow advocate. So if any one of my local friends, local breast cancer patients here are like, hey, I'm getting, you know, an MRI or I'm getting something done, can you come with me? Absolutely. I will be there for you. And I have gone with friends. I write down the notes like, this tech came in at 10:13 a.m. and the tech administered this. And then you were wheeled back to the procedure room at 11 a.m. So I document that whole timeline and I give it to my friends because they need to be aware of what's going on. And I think that that's something that for me, like I know what to expect, I know what to do. And yet when you're on the patient side, it's like everything just, you know, leaves my brain.
But as providers, like yes, we know what to do and we know the science. I'm not sure what you do, Chandra, but
I'm not clinical. I'm just
okay. But it's like you get a whole new appreciation of what it's like to be a patient. Like I feel like I had a fairly good understanding just because of what I do for a living. And then my mom, like going through everything with my mom, but holy wow, like it is so the things you deal with, like Rush said, like you're trying to, and I can't even imagine at 22 trying to deal with this, but like you're trying to deal with like all the crap that's being hit, like you're getting hit with like chemo and infertility, like fertility options and like all these things, let alone like having to deal with like insurance and fighting with them about getting coverage because you have like, you know, I dealt with that like with my hormone replacement. Like they're like, why do you need hormone replacement? I'm like, I'm in menopause. Like I need hormone replacement because I'm in menopause. Like I don't know what to tell you. Like it's crazy. Like I just got a whole new appreciation for what it's like to be a patient. And I love all of you guys.
We love you too. We love doctors that understand, right?
Yeah.
And
definitely.
Not the jerks that are like, you'll be scarred if you don't have breast reconstruction. That's not the first time I've heard that story. And I want to know who these I just want to walk into that doctor's office and be like, it was the cancer that scarred me.
I thought about that, like sending a message or something. Just sometimes I feel like people should know the consequences of their actions. And I thought about that, especially since I ended up doing so well. I had the blessing of making my decision prophylactically. So that means I went through the risks, the benefits, like everything in my head. Like I prepared for months for this. So psychologically, I was actually very good after surgery, and better than I thought. And because the whole menopause thing worked out fairly well for me, I actually wanted to email her and be like, hey, actually, I don't regret anything. And this was like the best decision I ever made. And I thought about it, but then I also thought, you know, again, as a palliative care physician, like I've seen people from all walks of life deal with all sorts of things, from like the 30-year-old vegan who got cancer to like the 105-year-old. Like I've seen it all. Actually, I've even done pediatric palliative care. So I've taken care of kids too. And like, I know that one day she's going to be in a situation where it's either she'll be the patient, or someone she really loves will be the patient. And then she'll finally realize, like, holy crap, this is what it feels like to be on the other side. And that's going to change her. So I don't think any of us telling our providers not to do something or do something is ever going to change them until they experience it themselves. So the best thing we can do is advocate for ourselves and leave and find another provider and a team that does get us, which I know a lot of women here have done. I did. So that's just my 2 cents. Cause I think the other side is true too. In healthcare, like everyone and their mother is burnt out, like especially the last 2 years. I don't know anybody of my colleagues that don't wish that they could quit right now, including people in my house. So
yeah, my husband has burnt out through the pandemic. So yeah, I see you.
It's interesting. I mean, I've heard Simran, your story and your background as well, and it's just so interesting. Before I was diagnosed, I had this sense of healthcare system, the medical community was always there to help. No matter like what, they're always there to help. That's what my understanding of it was. When I was trying to get additional testing and diagnosed, I was dealing with a doctor who was Indian, because I felt more comfortable going to an Indian doctor, who was gaslighting me and telling me that, I waited 3 or 2 months after I noticed a lump to get it checked out. But I was in my 20s. I didn't know.
Who thinks
that?
that?
I didn't know the lump that was in my breast was going to be cancerous. I didn't know that. And so when I was fighting my first, I had blood coming out of my nipple, and she went to go do a breast exam, and she touched it, and like some blood came out, and she goes, "Oh, it's really bleeding." And I'm like, in my head, I'm like
you made it up?
Right, yeah, it was crazy. And then when I was pushing her to get me earlier testing, because I went to see her in April. She wanted me to get testing end of May, June. And so I was yelling at her, and I said, "No, I need to know what's happening now. I need you to get me an appointment now." And she was like, "You already waited so long. You can wait a bit longer." Oh. And when she said that, I had like a flip of a switch in my mind. And before, Rush would not say anything and listen, because I was taught, don't disrespect your elders. But
or the doctor.
No. Yeah, or the doctor, because they're higher. They have a degree and higher status. But I was like, no, I know what's happening. There's something wrong. I need you to do your job and get me additional testing. And the day that she diagnosed me, she started crying and was sad, and I was angry at her because she made me feel like I was making it up. And
why was she crying?
I've always resonated. I've always resonated with your diagnosis story, because it's so similar to my mom's. Like my mom's Indian doctor as well, kind of pushed her off. Like she was 33, she felt this lump, and she pushed her off for like 3 months. Get this, guys. My mom was diagnosed in India. So we went to India for my grandparents' wedding anniversary, and she told her 4 older sisters, and they were all like, "Oh, hell no, like this needs to be tested." She had 2 biopsies done in India, and that's where she found out she had cancer.
It's probably cheaper there too.
Well, she didn't get treated there, but the Canadian healthcare system has a lot of flaws, but her doctor pushed her off so much that she didn't even get diagnosed in Canada. Wow. So that yeah, I resonate with your story so much. I'm so sorry that you went through that. Because you would think our kind will get us, but it's actually worse.
Yeah.
It's worse.
Yeah.
Repeating the cycle.
Yeah. I have an email saved to her. I have never sent it. It's been 3 years and I always want to send it, but I just want doctors to know that we're not just like people, our names are not just like on a chart and with our height and weight and our sexual orientation. We're actually human beings, and we have whatever you say to us affects us. We will hear what you're saying and relay it to our family members, or if you're saying in front of our family members, it'll affect them too. It's not like you just leave the room and like that conversation's over. It has lasting effects what you say.
Oh yeah. Preach, girl. Yep.
That circles back to the whole mental health aspect that Jenny opened the segment with. And just want to recognize that May is also Mental Health Awareness Month. So I think that for our, Asian cultures, mental health therapy is really something that we don't utilize enough. And we have so much generational trauma to unpack. But I also realize mental health providers are very scarce right now as well. So it's a challenge all around. I think I was fortunate to have access to mental health therapists here in the Central Texas region. So I definitely utilized and got some therapy, and that really helped me in my cancer situation.
Yeah, I found that therapy really helped me understand, because obviously my dad's white, but I'm dealing with my mothers and daughters, right? And it really helped me understand her trauma and how that translates to me. So the whole generational trauma conversation, I think it's true. And I wish I had done therapy earlier. I wish it was something that had been normalized in my family. I feel like it was seen as a moral failing if you went to therapy growing up. Like we didn't talk about it. Like it was just like at church, like, oh, did you hear so-and-so went to therapy? Like it was a taboo thing. And I'm happy to see that there are people who are being more vocal about it and talking about how helpful it is. Like I even my mom now, she's going to therapy.
I've been in therapy since I was 19. It's taboo in my family, in my culture to go to therapy. But I was in undergrad and I was deeply, deeply depressed, not functioning in society. It was my teacher who took me to go get help, and if it wasn't for her, I would have never. So since I saw the benefit of therapy at a young age, and I've been in therapy for over 20-something years, and it is the best thing you can do for yourself. That is the ultimate self-care. And I've always worked on trying to break that stigma, because there is that, oh, you're crazy. She's probably crazy. Something's wrong with her. I don't know if you guys have seen that meme that quotes, like, I'm in therapy because the people around me aren't in therapy. That is it. I've seen that. But I coincidentally, I don't believe in coincidences anymore since my cancer, but the stars aligned for me with my story and my experience with my family and just all of that. And I ended up at NIBRA, New York Raw. I don't know. They're all over Instagram now. Dr. Israeli, Dr. Banks, Dr. Light. They're based out of Great Neck, New York. And in their practice, they have a patient empowerment program. And there's a woman named Molly Sugarman who runs it. And the whole idea and mission behind their practice is that they treat the whole patient, right? And we cannot, our bodies are, what Molly had said to me is that our bodies are amazing. Human bodies are amazing. But the one thing that you're going to need the most is up here. Right? The trauma that happens, right? And they gave us, they have monthly meet, like this, like, I was like, how come nobody's talking about this? Like this is what we need. Even though I knew, because it was out in Great Neck and I was living out in Brooklyn, like I knew going there, nobody was going to look like me. I knew that. But I also knew that the services they provided, like this patient empowerment program, was everything I needed. And it just needs to be more like everywhere. We need this for women, for for people with cancer to process, because it's never going to stop, right? It's a process.
Yeah.
Right? You're just going to have to work through it, right? Survivorship is
Yeah.
hard.
Bitch.
It's
Yes.
hard.
Yeah.
It needs to be talked about. So
Yeah.
It's interesting, Laya, what you just said about knowing that nobody else was going to look like you walking into the room. We're here, a group of AAPI women representing, right? Because we don't see ourselves out there.
Yeah,
so
I tried really hard to find a POC provider, and I didn't find one. It was important, but I did have a female surgeon, breast surgeon, that was so important for me to have a female breast surgeon. But
I'm curious though, like what was it like? Like for me anyway, once I first started on my breast cancer journey and I made an Instagram account and I had to find out who else has breast cancer, right? Trying to find other women that look like me. It was challenging. And that was one of the reasons why I started my social media account. I was the only Asian person, literally the only Asian person in my infusion center. Other than, one of the oncologists was Asian. And that was it.
Like I Googled Asian breast cancer, or women of color, breast cancer survivors. The first woman who popped up was Erica Hart. I'm sure we all know who she is. So like, I just follow her in and out. And then I did it again. I was like, Filipino/Asian breast cancer survivors. And I was like, shit. But I found Nally.
Yeah.
And she was Filipina. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that like broke me, like to see, and just everything that, we lost her and all of that this year. And that was really hard for me as a Filipina.
We lost another Black Filipina. I can't remember her name now. I just know everyone's Instagram handles, but we lost her too. She was a Filipina lady. She was beautiful. It's been a hard year, guys. We've lost a lot of really, really great people.
Goosebumps.
That's been a lot of death. So it's just bad.
I'm sorry. I was just going to add, like, that's why the mental health stuff doesn't end when you finish treatment. When you're out of treatment, you're dealing with your friends who are getting re-diagnosed or are passing away, and that never stops. You might be like 10 years out, and you still have friends in the community that might be going through things, and getting diagnosed with a different type of cancer, and those mental hurdles never stop. I feel like in this like survivorship life that we have now, and I'm grateful that my oncologist said to me, she's an Asian woman, and she said to me, I want to know the good and the bad and the ugly, because for a long time I was putting up a front with her because I felt that she saved my life and I wanted to have her know that I'm okay. But on the inside, I was not okay. I was dealing with depression. I just had a close friend of mine die of triple negative breast cancer. And I wasn't okay. And I felt very alone in the pandemic. And I ended up telling her all of this. And, she, thankfully, we have now more open communication. But it made her realize, because she always said to me, like, oh, Rush, like, whenever you come in, you're always such a ray of sunshine. I wanted her to know that I'm not always a ray of sunshine. And there are clouds sometimes, and sometimes the clouds stay there. But yeah, I just wanted to add that people always say, oh, you're done with treatment, yay. And then they don't support you afterwards. I'm 3 years out. Yeah, right.
I think that's the brave part, honestly. People talk about how we're brave, but to continue to be active and to love within the breast cancer community, that takes bravery, because we know we're going to lose people. We know we're going to be re-traumatized. And that's where I see the bravery, not the cancer treatment part. That's just trying to stay alive. Right?
We don't have a choice on that.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
But to continue to be active within this community, it can be really hard. Like, it's definitely takes a toll.
people like you, Ginny, who do it. This is just speaking. You're the first one I found, and I've told you this story before, when I was like Laya, desperately looking on Instagram or social media for someone who looked like me, who's gone through it. Some of the ridiculous questions I had of all my fears, including things like, do Asians get curly hair when they lose their hair and it grows back? Like, just really everything, right? Ranging from all the decisions of what kind of mastectomy should I get to what is my hair going to look like? I was looking for anybody, and I did luckily find Ginny, and then I actually found Dr. Simran next. But luckily I found you guys, right? But visibility is so important because, as you had said, Ginny, the whole what we look like, the model minority myth is other people projecting the fact that they think that we've got it all together. And here's Rushdie saying we don't have it all together. And it's important for some of us, we don't all have to do it, but have some of us out there being visible and saying, look, this is what I look like, and I'm struggling. This is what I look like, and I can make a joke, but I'm also dealing with some stuff. This is what I look like, and this is my cancer experience. We have to get out there because there's going to be people looking for us. And it's not just them projecting the model minority myth on us. It's also us and our families projecting it, that it's too shameful to share those things.
Yeah.
But it's not if we're really being truthful to ourselves and helping each other. Right. So I'm going to keep trying to get out there, and maybe we should bring back that hashtag of Asian breast cancer. Maybe that's what we need, because there was nobody on it when I last looked 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's true. That was really well said, Jess. Thank you.
Yeah, it was. I started the hashtag Taiwanese breast cancer because I only know one other person that's Taiwanese with breast cancer.
Oh, I know a couple in our group.
Okay. Well, then you're going to have to introduce me. I mean, Peggy was one that I had invited to this conversation, but she was not available. So, and she's the only other Taiwanese person I know that was diagnosed with breast cancer.
That's the greatest power of social media, right? Like, look at this.
The blessing behind it, not the curse.
Yeah, like there's a lot of bad with social media, but and you guys probably have the same stories. Like, I can't even count the number of women now in the last, I guess it's been coming up on 2 years for me since my surgery, 2.5 years since I've been sharing my story. But I can't even tell you how many Indian women have reached out to me. Either with a diagnosis of cancer or talking about genetic mutations and saying bluntly, my family is not supporting me and I need someone to talk to. And just being able to do that because of social media has given me so much purpose.
That's huge.
So much purpose. Because I remember when I was 26, other than my mom, I didn't know anyone with a genetic mutation. I was a doctor, but I'd never met an Indian 26-year-old with a genetic mutation who was choosing to have surgeries. I've never heard of that, So this community is everything.
Can I add something that Jess had mentioned? You said something earlier about just seeing people who look like us. One of the things I realized after being active and having this breast cancer community and not seeing us is my scars don't look like other people's scars. Like, my doctor told me my scars were going to disappear within a year. I'm like, they're still dark. They haven't gone away yet. So to see Ginny, who you always show, you're just so proud, Baddie, showing your scars, to see that.
For our listeners, I just flashed everybody.
So much joy. my reconstruction scars don't look like most of the ones I see online.
Yeah.
I actually have an interesting story. My radiation oncologist, he was a young white guy. I feel like he was a child. He was a young child. He just looks so young. It was really disgusting. When we were doing all the prep, he was talking about, you can use this stuff on your skin and what's your skin going to look like. And I had all kinds of questions. And he made a big point about talking about how my skin and how I tan and how I have more melanin and how that would impact what my radiation scars would look like. And I told him that I appreciated that. He's married to a Korean woman. So he understood, that's how he had that empathy and knew that that conversation might be important to me. And I really appreciated that. And people ask, like, why does it matter if your doctor is the same or a similar race to you? Well, it shouldn't matter, but it does, because the only reason why he talked about it was because he's married to a Korean lady. If you have an Asian oncologist, or you're a Black woman and you have a Black oncologist, it's just there's easier. It's easier. There's like a baseline.
Well, also it's that they're not necessarily going to default that the white body is the norm. And that's all that I need. Yeah. I don't always need you to be from my experience, and I don't always need you to have experience with other people who look like me. It'll be ideal, but I don't need it. I just need you to not default to the white woman, because that's not going to help me. And that's already what medicine is doing. So like, I also had a radiologist who was an Asian man who was very careful to talk about things that actually was based on tons of experience with lots of different races and different skin. And that was really helpful because he was honest about what could or couldn't happen. My medical oncologist, my main oncologist, is a Korean woman who I love. Do I need to have an Asian doctor? No. But was it great? Yes. Because she said things to me that I wouldn't have thought about. She said things like, you need to ask me questions. Don't be afraid. Don't try to be the good student and the teacher's pet and not ask those questions. It's okay to ask me all the questions. Just like how Vrishni was saying, I want to hear the good and the bad. That's what your doctor told you, right? I want to hear everything. Yeah. And my doctor said that. Don't be the quiet Asian woman who's going to be too polite to not ask a question. And I said, okay, I'm in. That was great. But just knowing to say that was wonderful. And to hear it from her with the way she resonated with me, it's just so nice. So I just don't default. I mean, it's great.
Yeah. It's like someone taking your hand.
I love that for you, Jess.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, we're over an hour now, but there was one other thing that I wanted to talk about that I always talk about with my Asian friends when we get together, and it's food.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I had one of the ways that my mother shows support in all things is feeding me, right? So she would show up at my house with giant things of kimchi soup, like things like so much food. And she's just like, and then she'd come over, and my mom's kind of a little bit judgy in a way. She was very clean, and I'm not very clean. But the nicest thing was she would come over and do a little bit of cleaning and not give me shit about it, about how I wasn't cleaning stuff. So she would do like a vacuum for me or but mostly it was the food. And my favorite were all the soups that she would show up with. Like, that was like,
that's amazing.
My mommy loves me.
Yeah, my parents stayed with me. They came to quite a handful of chemo treatments. And at the time when I was living, during my cancer, I got rid of everything that was negative, and that included my partner at the time. So my parents came and stayed with me and cooked for me and cleaned for me, and it was great. It was wonderful. We just hung out on the couch and just did us for the whole time, and that and financially too. I was like, I'll give you money for all this food, and they're like, no. And so my mom would cook Filipino food all the time, and which, I can't cook. So I didn't. So that just kind of brought me back to just home, that Filipino food, to have that while you're sick.
Yeah.
My best friend was Filipino.
Comfort. Yeah. It's comforting.
My best friend was Filipino growing up, and I just remember the little egg rolls, the lumpia.
Lumpia.
I could go for a plate right now. Roshi, what about you? What were you force fed during treatment?
What were you force fed? Best question ever.
I love how you phrased it, because I felt force fed. My mom came to live in my apartment while I was in treatment, and she force fed me kale. A lot of kale, so much. I can't eat kale now.
Why the kale?
She's like, kale's good for your immune system. Eat the kale. And I'm like, okay, the kale's not going to boost my white blood cells. I hope you know that. It's the shots that they give you that will, not the kale. But besides the kale, she would make me bami. Bami is the Surinamese dish. It's a noodle dish, kind of like like stir fry with chicken, veggies, a little bit of sambal, but it couldn't be spicy because during chemo I had a very sensitive stomach. Also, she would make lamb curry, which even though that was really sensitive to my stomach, I would still suffer and eat it because I needed to eat that food. I didn't care if I was in the bathroom for the next week. I just needed to eat that food.
Worth it!
Yeah.
I love lamb curry.
Yeah. And then no one told me this, that I didn't know that I lost my taste buds during chemo. Mm-hmm. And so when I discovered that I couldn't eat all this food, and I could eat all this food but not taste it, I was sad. I was depressed because my love language. If you come over, if you bring me food, I don't care what you did, bring me food and I would be happy.
No flowers, just food.
No, just food. Just food. And what I love about food in our own cultures is that it makes you just feel loved. It makes you feel warm. It makes you feel like you're home, wherever your happy place is. It just makes you feel that way. So I did appreciate my mom being there. I did not appreciate the kale, but I appreciate the curry.
What about you, Dr. Simran?
Yeah, I mean, I think the greatest silver lining of my parents' divorce is that, anytime I've ever needed my mom, she just gets on a plane and comes over here. She's in Canada. I live in Maryland now. And so when I had my first baby, she was here for 6 months. And then I had my second baby, and then she was here for 6 months. And then even during the pandemic, she's a 2-time breast cancer survivor. Her second cancer came back after 15 years. And so she was only a couple of years out from everything. And she still came down. And yeah, I think, I'm the opposite of Roche. Give me all the kale. I love the kale. Anything kale, I will eat it, especially in a smoothie. So I love green smoothies. So for me, I remember being on my recliner after surgery, and I ended up having a big complication. I went flat after surgery, but the next morning when I woke up, I had bilateral hematomas. So I had basically blood bubbles. So it looked like I had B cups on both sides, and I had dropped 5 grams of blood. It was pretty bad. So I had to go for emergency surgery. So I was in pretty rough shape when I got home. And so I had drains and I had a hysterectomy. So I couldn't really do much for myself. So my mom, sweet soul, she literally was coming up and down the stairs and bringing me a plate of something every couple of hours. But my go-to food is, I'll say it in Punjabi, is dal chawal, which is just yellow lentils with rice.
I know.
I love my mom's. It's just the simplest food, but it's comfort food. But my mom's a chef. Seriously, she should have her own cooking show because she makes the best food ever. So my husband loves when she comes because he always gains weight.
Where do you live again? Because I know my mom lives in Maryland.
Oh, actually, we're moving to Bethesda. We're moving to Bethesda.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm in Maryland.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Where are you at?
White
Baddie
Plains.
meetups.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
we
right.
need to do Baddie
Yeah.
Did you
meetups.
say White Plains?
Yeah.
White Plains?
Yeah, White Plains, Maryland. That's
in
where I am.
Southern Maryland.
Southern Maryland, yes.
Oh,
Charles
that's
County.
Yeah.
Well, I'm moving closer to you.
Yeah.
I'm in Baltimore right now.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we have to do a meetup then.
Yes. I'm coming home. I'm coming back to the States. I'll hit you up.
Okay.
Yes, let's do it.
Dr.
I have not had a real in-person meeting with anybody. I've only ever met people in the virtual community. I've never actually met a breastie or a baddie in real life. I don't even know how I would
real
react.
names. I only know a lot of people.
Yeah, that's my problem too. I don't know people's real
Instagram
names.
handle.
Simran, I need a really good green smoothie recipe where I can't taste the kale. So if you could tell me that would be great.
Just add more pineapple. Add more tropical fruit. The more if you don't want to taste the greens, add more tropical fruit. That's how my kids will drink it. So because they won't eat salad, so I just give them green smoothies. Or if you don't or if you don't want to try the kale, just add something that's less potent if you still want the green, like spinach.
I usually use spinach.
Yeah, because you can't taste it. So that's, yeah. Or you could use like mustard greens or collards or something like that. Kale is pretty potent.
Yeah.
So you need to add a lot of fruit.
I've never had a yummy kale smoothie.
Maybe, or try adding like dates. Try adding dates or like maple syrup. Like you can add something to mellow it out.
Just sweeten it up. Yeah. All right. Jess, what kinds of lovely things did your family bring you to eat?
Well, it was a pandemic, so I couldn't see most of them. And then we couldn't get groceries. I don't know if you guys remember what that was like in your cities too.
Goodness.
Right? It was that first month of March was hard. And then when it dragged on to April and May when I was in chemo, we were still struggling to get like an appointment time for the grocery store for pickup in your car, much less Instacart. I mean, it was difficult. So people were just cooking. Yeah, toilet paper was still a joke, but also true. Nobody had it. It was a weird time. I live very close to my two sisters who are awesome. And luckily they did their best they could to pull out their freezers and cook stuff for me. My favorite was my one sister makes a chicken long rice. It's like a Hawaiian soup with clear glass noodles and chicken and ginger, heavy ginger. So it doesn't have tons of flavor, but it's really good. So that's probably one of my comforts. My real favorite though is Taco Bell. And
Mexican pizza's
the
back.
Mexican pizza just came back because they took it away right before I started radiation. So I made it through chemo and ate Taco Bell way more than I should have. I made it through surgery and ate Taco Bell way more than I should have. And then in November 2020, they took away the Mexican pizza and ruined my life. So it's not that.
Wait, it's no longer on the menu?
As of today. Well, tomorrow it's officially back. Oh, today. It's officially back today. So yeah.
Why was that even a thought in their minds to take it off the
they're
menu?
crazy.
Nobody asked them to do that.
Sustainability and no. So the truth is Taco Bell.
Hey, those potato tacos that they have, those spicy potato ones,
with the cheese.
That's really good drunk food.
It's good stuff. Good stuff. But it's because it's not just about the kale; it's about your comfort food and whatever that thing is. Sometimes during chemo, you're lucky you can eat anything. It's just whatever that one thing is, just put it in you. Please just try to eat it, So I was thrilled to eat anything I could eat. I struggled a lot with food. So
that acid reflux.
Everything, just, the nonstop diarrhea and constipation at the same time, how that's even possible. I don't even know.
It happens, but I don't understand how it happens.
Yeah, it doesn't, but it does happen. It's the weirdest thing. And, just don't imagine it. I'm sorry I brought it up, that kind of thing.
We're trying to talk about food here, Jess.
Right. Oh, yeah. But normally I'm a food person. So I love hearing the stories of food is comfort. And if my mom were here, she would have definitely given me food. It was really, really hard to not be able to see her or have her. I was in California and she was in Hawaii for the 2 years of the pandemic. So no, none of that. But sisters, they gave me something. I love my sisters.
That's good. I just feel like culturally, within the Asian culture, so many of our families show their love that way. Yeah, with the food, they may not say "I love you," but they show up at your house with a bowl of something.
Or they would have,
Bring you fruit.
I think about it. I don't know that my mom ever shows up at my house empty-handed. She's like, I went to Costco and have too much blah blah blah, and so she brings it to us.
So cute.
That is true.
Ginny and Shanrong, I think that for next May, we need to do like Asian recipes and foods for, cancer care. We definitely need like a book because I love those dishes.
There is an Asian cancer dietitian that I started following. She's got some good and interesting recipes, stuff that works for vegan and stuff that works for meat eaters as well. And she's one of the non-fear-based nutritionists out there as well, where you can eat the sugar, it's okay, but you should also maybe eat a salad to go with it, kind of thing. But she concentrates on Asian food in particular, which is really interesting. Like you can still eat your favorite ramen or jjajangmyeon or your pancit or whatever it is. And
I'm going to put it in the. Oh, okay.
I
just put it in.
Oh, you should put it in. Yeah.
I got so happy when I found her because before her, I was following a white dietitian who's also like non-spirit based, and I liked her, but I was kind of confused on like my family eats a lot of rice and a lot of curry and all that stuff. So I was like, okay, what about for me? Do I have to take all of that stuff out of my diet? So I was very happy to find the Asian cancer dietitian because she talks about everything, like just all different kinds of foods and what we can eat, what we can't eat, or what you want to buy at Nine Man Ranch. So I really liked her.
That's awesome.
Asian cancer dietitian. I'm going to have to follow her.
Yes. Plug for you. I think her name's Diane. Plug for you, Diane, if you're listening. I think, Chandra, we haven't heard from you about foods, comfort foods.
Yeah, I mean, coming from the Hmong culture, a lot of stuff is boiled, so like definitely soups. I'm so fortunate that during my recovery, I had both my sister, my mom, and my husband trying to help take care of me. But also, I'm very stubborn and independent. And I remember my sister was trying to make egg rolls for us, and she is like one of the best cooks that I know. Her egg rolls are delicious. And I was so tired of being waited on hand and foot that I told her I want to help make the egg rolls. So my husband, who is white, he gets the job of peeling the egg roll wrappers to give to my sister so that she can roll because, she rolls them nice and tight. And so I was so frustrated. I think I literally stole the cilantro. So of course, after your bilateral mastectomy, you have T-Rex arms.
T-Rex arms.
But so I want something to do. So I literally stole the cilantro and I'm sitting at the table and I'm picking off like the cilantro leaves. That was my contribution to the meal.
There's a meme or a reel or something in there. I know it.
Yes. So that was my contribution to that meal. But again, very fortunate to have my family here to feed me, wait on me hand and foot. So.
Nice. I think we're circled back around to Shangrong.
For me, when I had, I didn't go through chemo. I skipped chemo. I decided not to do it. With my oncotype score was 24. So it was a gray zone for me. And doing all the research, I just felt that the side effects outweighed the benefits. So I decided to skip chemo and do radiation. Mm-hmm. So through radiation, Dunkin' Donuts was my go-to meal. Which I'm very upset now. They don't have the toasted coconut donut anymore.
Oh man! What?
So that was my donut with medium hazelnut coffee with cream and sugar, and I had that every day for the 5 weeks I had radiation treatment. I got that either before or after my treatment was done. And then I would go for a run because that was my thing. And that's what I do for my mental health is run. So, and I did my first marathon back in November of 2021. Yay! So I didn't have to feel guilty either. But that was my thing. And then when I had reconstruction, I decided to do deep flap. I had a single mastectomy. So that one, I really needed help. So thank God my sister-in-law, my husband is Black African. He's Kenyan. So my sister-in-law came and stayed with us for a month. And Kenyan food is influenced a lot by Indian cuisine. So she made food that had a lot of curry in it. I had chapati as well. And that was great. There's one thing I do want to share also is that with her, she drove my boys to school because they didn't have the bus system where we live. And in Kenya, I always say they drive on the wrong side of the road, and so when she would drive them, I would have to be in the car with her to remind her to stay on the right side of the road and not be on the left side of the road. So that was one of my favorite memories when she was here, helping out. But that was Dunkin' Donuts and the Kenyan food with was the best thing. And then when I had my single mastectomy, we didn't have family that helped, so my sons made fried eggs. That was their expertise. They're very. If you ever want a fried egg, they're
perfect.
Very good at,
Perfect fried eggs.
perfect. And pancakes. Fried eggs and pancakes.
Sounds great.
Sounds like a great breakfast, lunch, or
We're having
dinner.
brunch at your house.
Yes. I do like breakfast for dinner.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
It's
fun.
very good. Yes. Well, I think we are getting up to about an hour and a half. Do we want to kind of wrap things up a little bit and see if anyone has any final thoughts before we do a closing here? Shangrong, you got any final thoughts for us?
Well, my final thoughts, I'm grateful to meet everyone here and to hear your stories. It's so important for us to amplify and support each other as Asian women. And so thank you for being here and showing up.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for proving that Asians do get breast cancer and Asians don't all look the same or sound the same.
And that there's
Yeah.
more than one. Like, there are multiple countries in Asia.
Yes.
Really?
Genetic mutations.
Yeah. I think it's really important to share our stories as Asians to show that, yes, Asians do get breast cancer. We do exist. Thank you, everyone, for being so open and honest and having such a wonderful conversation with us. We really appreciate it. I'd love to do it again.
Again. Have to.
I think once the podcast comes out, we can add everybody's social media handles as well. And then, I just want to say thank you to all of our listeners as well for tuning in. Happy AAPI month. I want to make sure that you like, share, subscribe, and you can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, wherever it is. Thank you again, and have a great day.
Or night, depending where you are.
Or night.
Wherever you are in the world.
Yes.
Okay, and scene.
This is another Baddie creation brought to you by For the Rest of Us. Don't forget to subscribe to Baddie to Baddie wherever you get your podcasts. And follow us on Facebook and Instagram at For the Breast of Us, on Twitter at The Breast of Us, and check us out online at breastofus.com. Thanks for listening.